Hello, LinkedIn and Facebook friends. It's Marie Gervais here with Julie Pham. And as you can see, we are matching. We have matching colors. We've got matching snow, each in different places of North America. And we have matching PhDs. And we're here to talk about my upcoming book, The Spirit of Work. Julie also has one about respect, the 7 forms of respect.
Yes.
7 forms of respect coming up soon. And so mine is called The Spirit of Work. And so both of us address workplace and workplace communications in our books. And so I asked Julie, what was she interested in from my book? And she was interested in chapter 5, which is called Bring Your Mind to Work. So Julie, what interested you about that chapter and how does that relate to your work?
Maria, I got to say, I really love this chapter. I really loved how you laid out the different types of thinking, because oftentimes we talk about diversity of thought, and I'd never really thought of diversity of thinking types. So that was just like to see you had creative thinking, critical thinking, reflective thinking, perceptual slash concrete thinking, and then conceptual slash abstract thinking. You even mentioned like sequential to and holistic thinking. And so it's like, oh, there are actually a lot of different thinking types. And I thought it was just super useful to have that laid out.
Yeah, also you can use all of those types. Some people are more restricted than others. It's kind of like conflict styles. Some people will have a very definite conflict style that they default to, and others can use 3 or 4 of them interchangeably. So people have interchangeable thinking styles too. Some of us are more rigid in what we can use for thinking styles, and others are more flexible.
Yeah, and and just being able to employ those different styles and being aware that they're the different styles. I think actually that's the part, which is, oh, here are the different thinking types. So which one do I lean into most? Which one do I have a bias for? And then also, which are the ones that, there are different kinds of thinking styles that are different thinking types that are needed for different kinds of work too. So, I mean, actually just thinking of when I'm writing, I realize that I need to do reflective thinking first before I can ease it. And that will help me ease into creative thinking, the activation of the ideas. So yeah, it was really cool to just see the different stages and how that relates to my work, my book. Because when I talk about respect, one of the frustrating things about respect is when we use this word respect and it's very abstract. So I hear people say, I want you to respect me. And someone else will say, I am respecting you. It's like, no, you're not. And they're kind of going back. And there's this kind of binary of respect versus disrespect. And sometimes a nice way of saying disrespect is you need to be more respectful. But what they're really saying is you're being disrespectful. And then that's living at the abstract thinking layer. And then with the 7 forms, it actually gets it down to the perceptual slash concrete. Like, what are the different ways that respect can look like? So, for example, do you want to be punctuality is a form of respect, and that has a very clear look. You are either telling someone that you're going to be late and you're letting them know, or you aren't. So yeah, I just really appreciate
and
it.
it's culturally bound.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so if you're, punctuality in one culture will look different than in another culture. And maybe punctuality in one culture has less weight than in another culture as
Mhm.
in terms of what it means for respect.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think with your book also the different you gave these examples of these two different construction site managers and how they had their own different thinking types and how they navigated that with their team and how they were able to be aware of it and then also work flexibly
Hmm.
with their team so that they can eventually all succeed together.
Right,
And
right.
I mean, I think that really just shows how we are flexible.
The human
We are
spirit
elastic.
is quite large, and
Mhm.
our capacity is mostly latent. We haven't developed most of it. By the way, anyone who's watching live or who's watching afterwards, it would be wonderful if you would add some comments.
Mhm.
From the practical standpoint, a comment means that the algorithms pick it up and actually people see it. No
Mhm.
comments, less algorithm attention.
Mhm.
And from us knowing that somebody is actually watching, it'd be great too, because we can see little numbers pop up and down here and there, but we don't really know what that means. So if you could type something in the chat box, that would be truly awesome. And if you're watching this afterwards, that'd be awesome too. So any comments would be most welcome. And we're talking about The Spirit of Work, which is my book, and coming up soon, Julie's book, The 7 Forms of Respect. And they both have to do with workplace. And we were talking about, in my book, chapter 5 is Bring Your Mind to Work and thinking styles. And Julie was saying something about how important that idea of different types of thinking has been to her. There's an example in the book about 2 managers. They're actually oil rig managers in the oil and gas industry. And I don't think that they know that I use them as an example. I gave them aliases for names, but they were part of a program 2 years ago that I was running. And I actually worked with each of them separately, and not only in training, but in coaching. And they became very articulate about the way they were thinking. They weren't initially, but they started to say, oh, this is how I think, or this is what I do. First I do this, then I do that. Or when I'm thinking about putting this project together, I think about it this way. And they became so much more articulate, not because of me, because they actually had an opportunity to start reflecting on what they were doing and to tell somebody about it. So instead of just do the job, it was like, let me think about how I do this. And then let me tell you how I'm thinking about how I do this. And it improved their capacity to clearly explain to their teams what they were doing.
Yeah, and so much of this is actually just being aware of what we're doing and then being able to articulate it to others so that then others can understand, oh, what's the why behind this? And then people can learn from it as well. So I really I liked how you had those 2 very different styles, and it also shows that it can be learned.
Yep. Yeah. Learned, and that we can have some different people have different areas of flexibility in their life about learning. So you may have really large flexibility for learning about, say, sports, and very low flexibility for learning about, say, philosophy. Or it could be the opposite, a really high philosophy flexibility, really low sports philosophy. So it doesn't mean, it's not like you're just a rigid thinking or a flexible thinker. You actually have flexibility within the things that interest you and whatever your job requires you to do.
Mm-hmm. And I think being aware of those different thinking types, then it's just, oh, well, let me try different thinking types too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like I think when people talk about communication styles, it's like, okay, just know this is my communication style and that's that person's communication style. And yet putting it out in this way, the thinking types, it's like, oh, actually, I can engage all of these at different times for different kinds of work.
Mm-hmm. And coming back to what you said earlier about respect, I think, speaking about thinking, if you are in a position of power in an organization, you can let people know, this is how I think about things, or this is how I like to approach things. Or when you're coming to me, I like to have this first. And you can set those expectations so people know how you think and they don't have to guess about it all the time. And that can be extremely helpful.
Absolutely, because otherwise people are guessing. I mean, you think
Mm-hmm.
about a leader who sets the culture for their team or for their company, and everyone else is just, well, how does the leader act? Okay, I better, because people do what you do, not what you say.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And whatever the leader does, everybody's just a little bit under. So if your bar is low, so is the rest of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And something I think is also very helpful is to just understand that everybody has a mind, and they aren't all bringing their mind fully to work because they haven't been encouraged to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we encourage people to bring their minds to work, the more magnificent results happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
we aren't even scratching the surface of what we can do as human beings collaborating together.
And then that's actually in the recognizing, oh, there are these different thinking types, and oh, that person is just really leaning in. They're actually displaying a lot of this abstract thinking. And I hadn't really thought of that as valuable because that's so different from my own. And so, even for leaders to reflect on that. So, there's one of making it clear to other people, hey, this is my thinking type. And then the other one is, what are all of the different thinking types on my team? And so, I mean, even for the 7 forms of respect, the way that translates is the leader can say, hey, these are my preferences, these are my forms of respect, and then to understand, well, what are other people's forms of respect, and then to think about, well, what's actually best for the team.
Mm-hmm.
And move it away from, hey, this is what I like to do, and actually to elevate the conversation and say, well, what's our work and what forms of respect serve that our shared work.
I love that, because what it is it's moving with unity towards a collective, mutually important goal.
Mm-hmm.
So that means everybody devotes their energies towards the goal. And the other thing is that it moves people away from thinking they have to stake their identity claim. And James Clear said
Yes.
something really interesting in his book Atomic Habits that has really stuck with me when I read the book the first time. Was that he said identity should remain flexible, but values solid.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of saying, "Oh, I'm the kind of person who doesn't do this," or "I'm the kind of person who does that," or "This is my communication style," or what, that cements your identity, and that's not really. It should be flexible, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise you're not learning anything and growing and responding to the circumstances. You're not reading your reality. But if your values are strong, then you're not. It's not like you're on a dancing, moving ship floor. You have values. You know what they are. You can articulate them, but what you learn allows you to shapeshift as required. So you're not going to be the type of person who will say, "I am this type of a person." you're just
Mm-hmm.
you're open to learning and growing, and you just keep adding on to your repertoire. So you don't lose your identity. You just build it out. You just add on another room. So
Yes.
yeah, we learn from each other and from reading each other's books, which is why I'm interested in interviewing other authors and asking them about what they're doing. So so that's what we were planning on doing today. Anything else you want to say about that idea of bringing your mind to work, or about the Spirit of Work book generally?
I it was a really great fun read. I learned a lot from all of the different stories, the different cultures and religions that you bring in, and I'm excited about sharing this book with my community.
Thanks, Julie. I'm excited about sharing yours too when it comes out, which is soon, I think.
Yes. Yes.
Depending on the rubberness of. Thank you for joining me today. And I hope that everybody who watched this little conversation got something out of it, and that you're thinking about different ways of thinking at work, and how that relates to reaching whatever goal you're collectively working towards. So thanks again for watching. And hello, Kershaw. Thank you for saying hello to us. And have a great rest of the day, everybody.